The massive circular chamber of the Galactic Senate on Proxima Centauri 4 hummed with the quiet murmurs of over 400 representatives from across the known universe. The architecture was deliberately imposing, soaring crystalline columns, supporting a dome that displayed the real-time positions of member worlds against the backdrop of the Milky Way. Light filtered through specialized membranes, creating an environment hospitable to the diverse biological needs of the assembled delegates. In the center of this grand chamber stood Ambassador John Miller, the sole representative of Earth. His posture was rigid, his face an expressionless mask that betrayed none of the turmoil beneath. Humans had been accepted into the galactic community centuries ago, but Earth's rapid technological advancement had always been viewed with suspicion by the older civilizations. Today was Judgment Day. The High Chancellor, a Vorlani with translucent skin that revealed the pulsing of 3 hearts, raised a 7-fingered hand for silence. The chamber immediately fell quiet. The only sound, the soft hum of life support systems and translator devices. This special session of the 2189th Galactic Senate is now in progress, the Chancellor announced, voice resonating through the perfect acoustics of the chamber. We gather to announce our ruling on Petition 3472B regarding Earth's violation of the technology containment protocols. John Miller felt the weight of 400 pairs of eyes and various other sensory organs focusing on him. He'd spent the last 6 months arguing Earth's case, presenting evidence of compliance, and attempting to disprove the accusations brought by the Draconian Empire. The Draconians, one of the oldest civilizations in the Senate, had claimed Earth was developing restricted gravitational manipulation technology, forbidden under Senate law due to its potential as a weapon of mass destruction. The accusations were, of course, carefully manufactured. Earth had indeed developed such technology, but they had done so with the utmost secrecy, aware of the jealousy and fear their rapid advancement inspired in the older races. The Draconians, with their vast network of spies, had somehow caught wind of the research, but lacked concrete evidence. Instead, they had fabricated proof, doctored records, and bribed officials. Ambassador Miller, the Chancellor continued, the Senate has reviewed all testimonies, examined all evidence, and deliberated extensively on this matter. Miller nodded once, his eyes briefly meeting those of Archduke Vex, the Draconian representative. The reptilian diplomat's scaled lips curved into what passed for a smile among his kind. The final vote stands at 94 against Earth, 8 in abstention, and 12 in favor. The Chancellor announced, the Senate finds Earth in violation of Section 73 of the Technology Containment Protocols. As per our laws, Earth will be isolated from all galactic commerce, communication, and travel for a period of 50 standard years. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The sentence was harsh, but not unexpected. Miller had known this outcome was likely from the moment the Draconians had brought their accusation. The older civilizations had always been wary of humanity's rapid progress, their adaptability, their ambition. This was merely the excuse they had been waiting for. Furthermore, the Chancellor added, a monitoring fleet will be stationed at the boundaries of the Sol system to ensure compliance. Any attempt to breach the isolation will be considered an act of aggression against the Senate and will be met with appropriate force. Miller closed his eyes briefly, allowing himself a moment of controlled rage before responding. The people of Earth acknowledge the Senate's decision, he said, his voice steady and carrying throughout the chamber. However, I am obligated to inform this body that we consider this ruling unjust, based on fabricated evidence, and motivated by political rather than juridical concerns. Archduke Vex rose from his seat, his large frame imposing even at a distance. The human representative questions the integrity of this body, he exclaimed, his voice a hissing baritone. Such disrespect only confirms their unfitness for galactic society. The Chancellor raised a hand. Earth's objection is noted. Ambassador Miller. However, the ruling stands. Earth is to begin isolation procedures immediately. You will be escorted to your vessel and returned to your homeworld, where you will remain for the duration of the sentence. Miller bowed slightly, a gesture that could be interpreted as respectful, but that he knew the more observant members would recognize as insincere. As he straightened, his right hand moved to his lapel, where a small pin in the shape of Earth's continents was affixed. With a subtle motion, he pressed the center of South America and held it for 3 seconds. Protocol Lazarus was now active. This session of the Galactic Senate is adjourned, the Chancellor declared, and the massive doors of the chamber began to close, symbolically and literally shutting Earth out of galactic affairs. As Miller was escorted from the chamber by 2 Zenith guards, their crystalline armor glinting in the artificial light, he allowed himself a small, secret smile. The Senate had made their ruling, and it would be their last mistake. 6 light-years away, in a hardened bunker beneath the Mariana Trench on Earth, Defense Minister Lisa Howard felt her secure communicator vibrate against her wrist. The subtle pattern, 3 short pulses followed by 1 long, caused her heart to race. She had hoped this day would never come, but they had prepared for it nonetheless. "Lazarus is active," she announced to the assembled military leadership in the Underwater Command Center. "Confirmation code, Alpha 7 Tango." The room, already silent, seemed to grow quieter still. The officers assembled, 12 men and women representing Earth's unified defense forces, exchanged glances. They had trained for this scenario, but facing the reality was another matter entirely. "Begin Phase 1, Howard ordered, her voice firm. "All command centers acknowledge." One by one, hidden command centers across the solar system reported in. Lunar Command, acknowledging Lazarus Protocol. Europa Station, acknowledging Lazarus Protocol. Olympus Base, acknowledging Lazarus Protocol. As the acknowledgements continued, Howard moved to a secure terminal and placed her palm on the scanner. A series of commands later, dormant systems throughout the solar system began to awaken. In the darkness of the far side of the moon, massive hangar doors that had been disguised as natural formations slid open, revealing sleek warships that had never been registered with the Galactic Senate. Admiral Diane Russell watched as power signatures flared to life across her fleet. 25 vessels designed with a single purpose: to defend Earth if the day ever came when they stood alone. "All ships report ready status," her executive officer announced. "Crew complement at 100%. Weapon systems green. Helios drives initiating warm-up sequence." Russell nodded, her expression grim. "Begin departure sequence. Maintain stealth protocols until we reach the rendezvous point." One by one, the ships rose silently from the lunar surface, their advanced propulsion systems leaving no visible exhaust, their hulls designed to absorb rather than reflect detection scans. Meanwhile, beneath the churning storms of Jupiter, Captain Steve Cooper and his executive officer, Commander Olivia Bennett, prepared a similar fleet hidden in the gas giant's turbulent atmosphere. Their vessels were heavier, designed for frontline combat, with reinforced hulls and the most advanced weapon systems humanity had secretly developed. "The Senate has always underestimated us," Cooper remarked as he watched his flagship, the Defiance, power up its systems. "They think because we're newcomers, we're naive." Bennett, a compact woman with calculating eyes, nodded. "That's always been our advantage, sir. They see what they expect to see. And now they'll see what we've become," Cooper replied, his eyes hardening. "Signal the fleet. Departure in 30 minutes. We'll rendezvous with Lunar Command at the designated coordinates." Across the solar system, similar scenes played out. Hidden bases revealed their secrets. Ships that officially didn't exist prepared for battle. Soldiers who had trained in secret readied themselves for the coming conflict. And at the center of it all, in the Underwater Command Center, Lisa Howard prepared to coordinate the most audacious military operation in human history. "Begin Phase 2, she ordered. Activate the Helios network. Across the solar system, specialized satellites that had been disguised as debris or incorporated into existing infrastructure activated, creating a secure communication network independent of the standard channels monitored by the Senate. Message from our asset in the Senate Diplomatic Corps. A communications officer announced, Ambassador Miller is being transported back to Earth on the Senate vessel Righteous Judgment, ETA to Sol System, 72 hours. Howard nodded. That gives us the time we need, Captain Cooper. Your fleet will intercept the Righteous Judgment before it reaches the isolation blockade. Admiral Russell, position your forces to counter any Senate reinforcements. What about our operative? Russell asked through the secure channel. Ben White has been providing invaluable intelligence. Do we extract him? Affirmative, Howard replied. He's revealed critical information about Senate defense systems. We can't leave him behind. As the plans unfolded, one thing became increasingly clear. Earth had been preparing for this day for decades. The isolation vote wasn't a surprise. It was an anticipated move in a much larger game, and humanity was finally ready to show its hand. Aboard the Senate diplomatic vessel, Righteous Judgment, Ambassador John Miller sat in his Spartan quarters, ostensibly under house arrest. The ship was large, designed to accommodate delegates from hundreds of different species, with entire sections dedicated to specific atmospheric requirements and gravity preferences. Miller's quarters were in the human-compatible section, a fact he found both convenient and ironic. The Senate was expelling Earth from galactic society while still catering to human biological needs. Such contradictions were typical of the bloated, bureaucratic entity the Senate had become. A soft chime indicated someone at his door. When it slid open, Miller was surprised to see a Terran, a species that closely resembled humans, but with subtle differences: slightly larger eyes, more prominent cheekbones, and a bluish tint to their skin. Ambassador, the visitor said with a slight bow. I am Kieran, assistant to the ship's diplomatic officer. I've been assigned to ensure your needs are met during the journey to Earth. Miller gestured for the young man to enter. As soon as the door closed, Kieran's demeanor changed. Ambassador, he said in a low voice. I'm with Earth Intelligence, codename Stardust. Miller's expression didn't change. Verification phrase? The stars are not silent, only patient, Kieran replied without hesitation. Miller nodded once, satisfied. Report. The ship will reach Earth in 70 hours. A Senate blockade fleet is already in position at the edge of the Sol system. 12 heavy cruisers and 24 support vessels. Defenses? Miller asked. Standard Senate configuration. Plasma shields, quantum torpedoes. But nothing that can stand against Helios technology, if the rumors are true. Miller allowed himself a small smile. They're not rumors, Kieran. How's your extraction looking? Earth forces will intercept this vessel before we reach the blockade. I'll be ready. Kieran hesitated. Sir, is it true? Is Earth really going to challenge the Senate? Not challenge, Miller corrected. Transform. The Senate has become corrupt, dominated by ancient civilizations that fear change and progress. Humanity has tried to work within the system for centuries, but today, they've shown us that's impossible. Kieran nodded slowly. The Senate doesn't understand what they've done. They think they're punishing Earth, but they've only freed you from having to pretend to accept their limitations. Precisely, Miller said. The old powers have grown complacent. They've forgotten what it means to fight for their place in the universe. He looked out the small viewport at the stars streaking by. They're about to remember. Meanwhile, in the vast expanse of space between Neptune's orbit and the Kuiper Belt, Earth's hidden fleets were converging. The sleek, midnight black vessels moved silently through the void, their advanced stealth systems rendering them nearly invisible to conventional sensors. Aboard the Defiance, Captain Steve Cooper stood on the bridge, watching as ships from across the solar system arrived at the rendezvous point. "Status report," he ordered. Commander Bennett consulted her display. "All vessels accounted for, sir. Lunar Fleet reports ready status, Jupiter Division, Mercury Rapid Response, and Mars Defense Forces, all at battle stations. The Helios network is functioning at optimal capacity." Cooper nodded, studying the tactical display. 57 ships in total. Not a large fleet by Senate standards, but every vessel represented the pinnacle of Earth's secret technological development. These weren't the registered ships that Earth maintained for show. These were the real power of humanity, hidden from prying eyes for decades. "Message from Defense Minister Howard," Bennett announced. "Operation Lazarus is proceeding to Phase 3. The Senate vessel carrying Ambassador Miller will reach these coordinates in 12 hours. We are to intercept, retrieve the ambassador, and then proceed to the blockade." "And after that?" Cooper asked, though he already knew the answer. Bennett's expression was solemn. "We show the Senate that Earth will not be isolated, subjugated, or controlled. We force them to recognize us as equals or we demonstrate that we're superior." Cooper finished. "Battle stations. I want all weapon systems checked and rechecked. The gravitational disruptors are our primary advantage. Make sure they're functioning perfectly." As the order spread throughout the fleet, engineers and weapons specialists conducted final inspections of the technology that would soon shock the galactic community. The gravitational disruptors, weapons that could selectively alter gravitational fields around enemy vessels, were Earth's most closely guarded secret. Officially, humans had barely mastered basic gravity manipulation for their own ships. In reality, they had weaponized the technology in ways the Senate's scientists had only theorized about. In the diplomatic section of the Righteous Judgment, Archduke Vex was enjoying his victory. The Draconian reclined on a specially designed couch. His scaled body relaxed as he sipped a bubbling green liquid from a crystalline goblet. "To Earth's isolation," he toasted with several other delegates, who had accompanied the ship to witness the enforcement of the Senate's decree, "and to the continued stability of the galactic order." The other delegates, representatives from the Vorlani Collective, the Tundari Dominion, and the Elysian Consortium, raised their own drinks in agreement. All were members of the old powers, civilizations that had controlled the Senate for millennia. "The humans were becoming too ambitious," the Tundari representative commented, their tentacles rippling with satisfaction. "Did you see how quickly they mastered space travel after we made contact? A mere 3 centuries from their first orbital flight to colonizing their entire system. Precisely why they needed to be contained." Vex agreed. "Their rate of technological development is unnatural. If left unchecked, they might have surpassed even the Draconians within another century." The Vorlani diplomat, a being of translucent tissues and pulsing organs, made a gesture of agreement. "The evidence you presented was quite compelling. Archduke, multiple violations of the technology containment protocols." Vex's vertical pupils contracted slightly, the draconian equivalent of a smile. "Yes, the evidence. Most convincing, wasn't it?" The subtle emphasis wasn't lost on the others. In the privacy of this gathering, there was no need to maintain the fiction that Earth had actually violated any protocols. The evidence had been skillfully manufactured by draconian intelligence operatives, with the tacit approval of the other old powers. "Do you think they suspect?" the Elysian asked, the bioluminescent patterns on their skin shifting nervously. "What does it matter if they do?" Vex replied dismissively. "They're isolated now. 50 years under blockade will ensure their technological progress stagnates. By the time they're readmitted to galactic society, if we even vote to readmit them, they'll have fallen so far behind that they'll never catch up." The Vorlani made a sound that approximated a laugh. Ambassador Miller seemed remarkably composed for someone receiving such a sentence. "I expected more protest." Vex waved a clawed hand. "Humans are unpredictable in their emotional responses. Perhaps their diplomatic training is better than we give them credit for. Or perhaps he simply knew protest was futile. What none of them realized was that their conversation was being carefully recorded by Kieran, who had positioned himself as a server in the diplomatic lounge. The admission that the evidence had been fabricated would soon be transmitted throughout the galaxy. But for now, the Terran spy simply continued to pour drinks and remain invisible to the powerful beings celebrating their victory. It was a victory that would be incredibly short-lived. 12 hours later, alarms blared throughout the righteous judgment. Ambassador Miller, who had been expecting the moment, calmly rose from his meditation and moved to the viewport in his quarters. In the distance, he could see them, black shapes against the darkness of space, visible only because they were now deliberately allowing themselves to be seen. Earth's fleet had arrived. On the bridge of the Senate vessel, Captain Neral, a veteran Tundari officer, stared in disbelief at the sensor readings. "Impossible," he muttered, his tentacles writhing in agitation. "Where did these ships come from? Earth has no fleet of this size." "Sir," his first officer reported, "we're being hailed." Neral hesitated, then nodded. On screen, the communication display activated, revealing the face of a human male in a uniform Neral didn't recognize. "Oh, Senate vessel, Righteous Judgment. This is Captain Steve Cooper of the Earth Defense Force vessel Defiance. You are carrying Ambassador John Miller of Earth. Prepare to be boarded." Neral's color shifted to a deep blue, a sign of anger among the Tundari. "This is an act of war against the Galactic Senate. Stand down immediately or face destruction." Cooper's expression didn't change. "Your vessel is surrounded by 57 Earth warships. You have one human and one Terran operative aboard. Release them immediately, and you can continue on your way. Refuse, and we will take them by force." In the diplomatic section, Archduke Vex burst onto the bridge, his scales flushed with rage. "What is the meaning of this? Humans have no military capacity to challenge a Senate vessel." He stopped short when he saw the tactical display. The Righteous Judgment was indeed surrounded by ships that shouldn't exist. Sleek, advanced vessels that bore no resemblance to the registered Earth fleet the Senate had documented. "Those ships are in violation of Senate law," Vex snarled. "Captain Neral, signal the blockade fleet! Destroy these criminals!" Neral hesitated. "Archduke, we are outnumbered. And these vessels, they don't match any known Earth design." "Because they've been hiding their true capabilities," Vex hissed. "Just as we suspected." On the display, Cooper spoke again. "You have 5 minutes to release Ambassador Miller and our operative. After that, we will take action." Neral turned to his weapons officer. "Charge all defensive systems. Prepare quantum torpedoes." "Sir," the officer replied nervously, "our scans indicate these vessels are employing technology we can't identify. Energy signatures are unusual." Before Neral could respond, a new alarm sounded. "Intrusion detected in Docking Bay 3, a security officer announced. Multiple humanoid life forms." Vex's eyes widened. "They're already boarding. How did they bypass our shields?" The answer, had they known it, was simple. Earth's technological development hadn't been stagnating under Senate observation. It had been accelerating in secret. The small craft that had silently attached to the Righteous Judgment's hull carried phase shift technology that allowed them to pass through standard Senate shields, as if they weren't there. Throughout the Senate vessel, short, intense firefights broke out as Earth's special forces encountered resistance. The human soldiers moved with precision and coordination, their weapons designed to incapacitate rather than kill, a deliberate choice that would later be noted in Senate reports. In his quarters, Ambassador Miller heard the distant sound of energy weapons. Moments later, his door slid open to reveal 4 humans in sleek combat armor. "Ambassador," the leader said, raising her visor. "Commander Jessica Reeves, Earth Special Forces. We're here to bring you home." Miller nodded calmly. "Excellent timing, Commander. There's one more passenger we need to retrieve. A Terran operative named Kieran." Already secured, sir. If you'll come with us. As Miller was escorted through the corridors of the righteous judgment, he caught glimpses of the operation in progress. Senate security forces lay unconscious, but alive, their weapons collected and disabled. The Earth soldiers moved with a discipline and efficiency that would have been impossible without years of specialized training. They reached a docking bay where a sleek craft waited, its ramp extended. Inside, Miller found Kieran already strapped into a seat. "Ambassador," the Terran nodded. "I've secured the recordings of the diplomatic conversations. Archduke Vex explicitly admitted to fabricating evidence against Earth." "Excellent work," Miller replied as he took a seat. "That will be useful in what comes next." The extraction craft detached from the righteous judgment, passing effortlessly through the vessel's shields and rejoining the Earth fleet that maintained its position around the Senate ship. On the bridge of the Defiance, Cooper received confirmation of the successful extraction. "All personnel secured. No casualties on either side." "Good," Cooper responded. "Signal the fleet. We proceed to the blockade." As the Earth vessels prepared to depart, a final message was transmitted to the righteous judgment. It was brief and to the point. "Inform the Senate that Earth rejects its unjust isolation. We will be presenting evidence of corruption and conspiracy at the highest levels of Senate leadership. The old order is ending." The Earth fleet vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the Senate diplomatic vessel intact, but humiliated. Captain Naral knew that his career was likely over. No Senate captain had ever suffered such a defeat without firing a single effective shot. In the diplomatic lounge, Archduke Vex paced furiously, his claws leaving scratches in the polished floor. "This changes nothing," he insisted to the other delegates. "They've only proven their guilt. Now the Senate will have no choice but to declare full war on Earth." The Vorlani representative wasn't so certain. "They could have destroyed this vessel, Archduke. Instead, they conducted a precision operation with no casualties. That shows restraint and discipline, not the actions of criminals. And if they truly have evidence that you falsified the charges against them," the Elysian added, their skin patterns shifting to indicate deep concern. Vex turned on them, his neck frill extending in anger. "Are you suggesting you'll support these upstarts against the Draconian Empire? Need I remind you of the consequences of such a choice?" The implicit threat hung in the air, a reminder of why the old powers had maintained control for so long. Fear and intimidation had always been their most effective tools. But as the diplomatic vessel limped toward the blockade to warn them of the approaching Earth fleet, even Vex couldn't silence the whisper of doubt in his mind. For centuries, the Senate had maintained the illusion that humans were tolerated, but contained. Today had shattered that illusion forever. At the edge of the Sol system, the Senate blockade fleet maintained its position. 12 heavy cruisers and their support vessels formed a perimeter designed to enforce Earth's isolation from the rest of the galaxy. The commanding officer, Admiral Zahn of the Elysian Consortium, had been briefed on the Senate's ruling and was prepared to ensure it was carried out. What he wasn't prepared for was the message that reached him from the righteous judgment. "A human fleet?" he repeated, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with disbelief. "Impossible. Our intelligence indicates Earth has only 23 registered vessels, all of which are accounted for in their orbital dockyards." "These aren't registered vessels, Admiral," Captain Naral's agitated image replied from the communication screen. "They appeared from nowhere, surrounded us, and extracted their ambassador with minimal effort. Our shields were useless." "And now they're heading here?" "Yes, Admiral. They explicitly rejected the Senate's isolation order." Admiral Zahn considered this information. Unlike many of his peers, he had never underestimated humans. During his long career, he had observed their rapid advancement with a mixture of admiration and concern. But even he hadn't suspected they possessed technology advanced enough to challenge Senate vessels. "How many ships?" he asked. 57 that we could detect. but their stealth capabilities are unprecedented. There could be more. Zahn turned to his tactical officer. Alert all vessels. Battle stations. I want defensive formations established immediately. As the blockade fleet scrambled to prepare, Zahn couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to face something beyond their experience. Senate forces hadn't engaged in actual combat for nearly 3 centuries. The peace maintained by the old powers had been so absolute that many officers had never fired their weapons outside of training exercises. His concerns proved well-founded. Just as the blockade fleet completed its defensive positioning, the sensors detected multiple anomalies at the edge of their range. Energy signatures detected. Admiral, the sensor officer reported. They match those reported by the righteous judgment. 58 vessels approaching at high velocity. 58? Zahn questioned. Neral reported 57. Confirmed, sir. 58 distinct signatures. Zahn frowned. Either Neral had miscounted, or... They have reinforcements. Indeed. Admiral Diane Russell's lunar fleet had joined Cooper's force, bringing an additional ship to the formation. The combined Earth fleet now approached the blockade with purpose and precision. Open a channel, Zahn ordered. When the communication was established, he spoke with the authority of his position. Unidentified vessels. This is Admiral Zahn of the Galactic Senate blockade fleet. You are approaching a restricted zone. By order of the Senate, the Sol system is now under isolation protocols. Reverse course immediately, or we will open fire. The response came moments later. A human female whose insignia identified her as an admiral in Earth's military. Admiral Zahn. This is Admiral Diane Russell of the Earth Defense Force. The Senate's ruling was based on fabricated evidence and corruption. Earth rejects this illegal isolation. We are proceeding to the nearest Senate communications hub to broadcast evidence of this corruption. Stand aside or be neutralized. Zahn's patterns shifted to a warning red. You are outnumbered. Admiral Russell. The Senate blockade consists of 36 vessels, all with superior firepower to anything Earth possesses. Russell's expression remained impassive. You are mistaken on both counts. Admiral, I suggest you verify your sensor readings again. Confused, Zahn glanced at his tactical display. What he saw caused his bioluminescence to dim in shock. The Earth fleet had somehow multiplied, where moments before 58 ships had approached. Sensors now detected over 100 vessels surrounding the blockade in a 3-dimensional englobement. Holographic projections, his tactical officer suggested. They're creating false signatures. Verify, Zahn ordered sharply. Before the officer could comply, Russell spoke again. This is your final warning. Admiral Zahn, Earth wishes to avoid bloodshed. Stand down your fleet and allow us passage. Zahn hesitated. Something about this situation felt wrong. The humans were too confident, too prepared. But he had his orders from the Senate. All vessels, target the Earth fleet and fire at will, he commanded. The space around the blockade lit up as Senate vessels launched quantum torpedoes and directed energy weapons toward the Earth ships. For a moment, it seemed as though the superior firepower of the Senate would prevail. Then the impossible happened. Aboard the Defiance, Cooper gave the order they had been waiting for. Activate gravitational disruptors. Throughout the Earth fleet, weapons that had been developed in secret for decades powered up. These weren't crude weapons designed to destroy. They were precision instruments meant to neutralize without unnecessary casualties, a distinction that would prove crucial in the aftermath. The gravitational disruptors created localized distortions in space-time around the Senate vessels. Suddenly, the torpedoes launched by the blockade fleet curved in erratic trajectories, missing their targets entirely. Energy beams bent away from Earth ships as if the very fabric of space refused to cooperate with the Senate's attack. What's happening? Zahn demanded, as his flagship's weapons proved completely ineffective. Unknown, Admiral, his science officer replied, frantically analyzing data. It appears they're manipulating gravitational fields around our vessels. Our targeting systems can't compensate. Impossible, Zahn muttered. That technology is theoretical at best. But the evidence was undeniable. Not only were Senate weapons missing their targets, but Earth vessels were now systematically neutralizing the blockade. One by one, Senate ships found their propulsion systems failing as targeted gravitational distortions interfered with their engines. "Admiral," his executive officer reported, panic evident in his voice. "7 of our vessels have lost all power. Life support is on emergency backup, but weapons and propulsion are offline." Zahn watched in disbelief as his blockade, the enforcement arm of the Senate's will, was systematically disabled without a single human weapon firing a destructive shot. This wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. "Open a channel to Admiral Russell," he ordered, his patterns now shifting to the blue-green of resignation. When Russell's face appeared on the screen again, Zahn spoke formally. "Admiral, it appears you have capabilities we did not anticipate. To prevent further disruption to my vessels, I am standing down the blockade. Be aware that this action will be reported to the Senate in full." Russell nodded once. "We expect nothing less. Admiral, your cooperation is appreciated. We have no desire to harm Senate personnel. Our quarrel is with the corrupt leadership that has manipulated the Senate for their own ends." As the Earth fleet moved past the disabled blockade, Zahn couldn't help but ask one final question. "The gravitational technology, how long have you had it?" Russell's expression remained neutral. "Long enough, Admiral, long enough." The implications of that simple answer would soon echo throughout the galaxy. Earth hadn't just been developing prohibited technology. They had mastered it to a degree that the Senate's theoreticians had considered impossible. And they had done it all while under the supposedly watchful eye of the galactic community. The old power's greatest fear had been realized. Humanity had surpassed them. And now the galaxy would know it. In the cavernous chamber of the Galactic Senate on Proxima Centauri 4, chaos reigned. What had begun as a routine follow-up session to Earth's isolation had transformed into unprecedented pandemonium when the main communication screen activated without authorization. The face of Ambassador John Miller appeared, larger than life, addressing not just the Senate, but countless worlds across the galaxy as Earth's operatives hijacked the Senate's own communication network. "Representatives of the galactic community," Miller began, his voice calm but firm. 3 days ago, this body voted to isolate Earth for 50 years, based on charges brought by the Draconian Empire. Today, I present evidence that those charges were fabricated, the evidence falsified, and the proceedings corrupted by the influence of the old powers. Archduke Vex leapt to his feet, his frill fully extended in rage. "This is an outrage! Cut that transmission immediately!" But the Senate's technicians were finding that impossible. Somehow, Earth had gained control of systems that should have been impenetrable. On screens throughout the chamber and across thousands of worlds, Miller continued. "I present to you Exhibit A, a private conversation between Archduke Vex and representatives of the Vorlani, Tundari, and Elysian governments, recorded aboard the Senate vessel Righteous Judgment." The recording began to play, crystal clear and damning. Vex's own voice filled the chamber. "The evidence you presented was quite compelling. Archduke, multiple violations of the technology containment protocols." Yes, the evidence. Most convincing, wasn't it? The subtle emphasis and the context of the conversation left no doubt. Vex was admitting to fabricating evidence. As the recording continued, revealing the old power's explicit conspiracy to halt Earth's progress, the Senate chamber erupted into shouting and accusations. Representatives from younger civilizations, those who had often felt the weight of the old power's dominance, were particularly vocal. For centuries, the Draconians, Vorlani, Tundari, and Elysians had maintained control through their seniority and supposed wisdom. Now, That moral authority was crumbling in real time. When the recording ended, Miller appeared again. The Senate was founded 3,000 years ago as a body of equals, dedicated to peace, cooperation, and mutual advancement. But it has become a tool for the oldest civilizations to maintain their dominance by suppressing the growth of others. Earth is merely the latest victim of this systematic corruption. The Chancellor, attempting to regain control, activated his own communication channel. Ambassador Miller, you are addressing this body illegally. Earth remains under isolation by vote of the Senate. A vote based on lies, Miller replied evenly. But Earth has no intention of seeking readmission to a corrupted Senate. Instead, we propose a new beginning. The image shifted to show a massive fleet of Earth vessels in high orbit around Proxima Centauri 4 itself, the heart of Senate territory. There were gasps throughout the chamber. How had humans bypassed the extensive defense network that protected the Senate world? The implications were staggering. Earth extends an invitation to all worlds who seek true equality and cooperation. Miller continued, we are establishing a new galactic alliance of free worlds, based on principles of mutual respect, technological sharing, and collective security. All civilizations, regardless of age or development stage, will have equal voice and equal protection. Archduke Vex, his scales now pale with fury, approached the Chancellor's podium. This is an armed insurrection. I demand that Senate Defense Forces destroy these human vessels immediately. The Chancellor hesitated, looking at the tactical displays that showed the overwhelming Earth presence in orbit. Archduke, they have neutralized our blockade without casualties and penetrated our most secure communication networks. A military response would be ill-advised. Coward, Vex hissed. The Draconian Empire will not stand for this. If the Senate will not act, we will. As Vex stormed from the chamber, the Senate erupted into factions. Representatives clustered in groups, some expressing outrage at Earth's actions, others at the revealed corruption, and still others openly discussing the possibilities presented by Miller's proposed alliance. Miller, watching the chaos from the bridge of the Defiance in orbit above, turned to Captain Cooper. And so it begins. The transformation will not be smooth, but it was never going to be. Will they fight? Cooper asked, watching as Draconian vessels began to power up in the Senate orbital dockyards. Some will try, Miller acknowledged. The old powers won't surrender their position easily, but many more will join us than you might expect. The Senate has accumulated centuries of resentment from younger civilizations. As if to prove his point, the communication officer reported, Ambassador, we're receiving transmissions from 73 worlds requesting more information about the alliance. 9 have already indicated their intention to join. Miller nodded. Prepare for the Draconian response. Remember, minimal casualties. We're here to reform, not destroy. The response came swiftly. 20 Draconian warships broke from the orbital dockyards, forming an attack pattern aimed directly at the Earth fleet. They're powering weapons, Bennett reported from her tactical station on the Defiance. Targeting solutions incoming. Cooper looked to Miller, who nodded once. Neutralize them. No destruction unless absolutely necessary. The gravitational disruptors activated once more, creating a distortion field that the Draconian vessels couldn't penetrate. Their weapons fire curved harmlessly away from the Earth ships. Their engines struggled against spatial anomalies that slowed them to a crawl. They're attempting to adapt, Bennett noted, modifying their shield frequencies. They won't succeed, Cooper replied confidently. Our technology is generations ahead of anything they've conceived. Indeed. Despite the Draconians' best efforts, their attack faltered before it truly began. Within 20 minutes, all 20 vessels were effectively immobilized, floating helplessly in space, unable to advance or retreat. Throughout the Senate chamber, representatives watched in stunned silence as the most powerful military force in the known galaxy was neutralized without apparent effort. The Draconians, feared for millennia for their martial prowess, had been rendered impotent. Miller addressed the Senate again. Let this demonstration serve as both assurance and warning. Earth possesses technology beyond anything the Senate has regulated. We could have used it for conquest. Instead, we offer partnership. The choice is yours. Continue with a corrupted system designed to maintain ancient hierarchies, or join us in building something better. He paused, allowing his words to sink in. Representatives will find details of the proposed alliance structure transmitted to their secure channels. We will remain in orbit for 7 standard days to receive delegations from interested worlds. After that, Earth and its allies will depart to establish the new order. The transmission ended, leaving the Senate in an unprecedented position, forced to consider a future where they were no longer the center of galactic governance. In the days that followed, the Senate chamber became a forum for heated debate. Some representatives argued for immediate military action against Earth, despite the demonstrated futility of such efforts. Others proposed negotiations to bring humans back into the Senate fold with concessions and guarantees. But the momentum had shifted irrevocably. Miller's evidence of corruption, combined with Earth's demonstration of technological superiority and their offer of true equality, proved too compelling for many worlds. By the 3rd day, over 200 civilizations had sent delegations to Earth vessels to discuss alliance membership. The old powers found themselves increasingly isolated. The Draconians retreated to their core worlds, issuing threats that few took seriously after their military humiliation. The Vorlani, more pragmatic, began quiet discussions about possible terms for joining the alliance. The Tundari and Elysians watched and waited, unwilling to commit but equally unwilling to oppose Earth openly. On the 7th day, as promised, the Earth fleet prepared to depart. They left behind a changed galaxy. The Senate continued to exist, but with less than half its former membership and a fraction of its former influence. In its place, the Galactic Alliance of Free Worlds began to take shape. 412 civilizations united by new principles and protected by Earth's revolutionary technology. In the Underwater Command Center on Earth, Lisa Howard stood before the assembled leadership of humanity's unified government. The mood was solemn despite their victory. Phase 3 of Protocol. Lazarus is complete, she reported. The alliance is established. Senate influence has been curtailed. Earth's security is ensured for the foreseeable future. The President of the United Earth Government, a tall woman with streaks of gray in her dark hair, nodded. And our technological advantage? Secure for now, Howard replied. We've begun controlled sharing of non-military advances with our closest allies. As agreed, the gravitational technology remains exclusively ours, though we're using it to provide protection for all Alliance members. And the Draconians? Howard's expression darkened slightly. Sullen but contained. Our intelligence suggests they're searching frantically for countermeasures to our technology. They won't find any soon, but we're monitoring them closely. The President sighed, the weight of recent events evident in her posture. We never wanted this confrontation. For centuries, we tried to work within the Senate's framework, to be good galactic citizens. They gave us no choice, Howard responded. The isolation vote was just the beginning. Our intelligence indicated plans for much more severe measures if we had submitted. I know. The President turned to gaze at the tactical display showing Earth's new position in the galaxy. No longer a peripheral member of a corrupt Senate, but the center of a growing alliance. Still, we must be careful. Power such as we now wield comes with immense responsibility. The Alliance Charter includes robust checks and balances, Howard reminded her. No single world, not even Earth, can dominate decision-making. On paper, the President noted. But in reality, our technological advantage makes us first among equals, whether we acknowledge it or not. She straightened, her resolve visible. Which is why we must be exemplars. The Senate maintained control through fear and manipulation. We must lead through justice, transparency, and genuine cooperation. Howard nodded in agreement. The transition teams are already working with new member worlds to establish the Alliance headquarters on Tau Ceti II. The location is symbolically important. Neutral territory, a young colony world, rather than any established power center. As the meeting continued, detailing the myriad challenges of establishing a new galactic order, none of the participants failed to appreciate the historic nature of what they had accomplished. In less than 2 weeks, humanity had transformed from an isolated, supposedly contained species to the architect of a new era in galactic politics. Ambassador John Miller, returning to Earth after his diplomatic mission to the former Senate worlds, reflected on this transformation as his shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere. The planet below, blue and green and vibrant, had been targeted for stagnation and eventual irrelevance by ancient civilizations, fearful of change. Instead, it had emerged as the catalyst for the greatest political reformation the galaxy had seen in 3 millennia. The shuttle landed at the Global Diplomatic Center in Geneva, where Miller was greeted by the President herself. "Welcome home, John," she said warmly, embracing him briefly. "History will remember your role in this." Miller shook his head slightly. "History will remember all of us, the scientists who developed our technology in secret, the military leaders who prepared for this day, the political visionaries who designed the Alliance. This was humanity's achievement, not mine alone." As they walked toward the waiting officials, the President spoke quietly. "There's something you should know. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual activity in the Andromeda Galaxy. Energy signatures unlike anything we've seen before." Miller glanced at her sharply. "A threat?" "Unknown at this point, but the timing is concerning. Just as we reshape the political landscape of our own galaxy, something appears to be stirring in our closest galactic neighbor." Miller absorbed this information, his diplomatic mind already considering the implications. "Perhaps this is why we were meant to break free of the Senate's restrictions. Perhaps we'll need all our innovation, all our adaptability, for what comes next." The President nodded solemnly. "That's my thinking as well. The Alliance may have been born from a political necessity, but it may serve an even greater purpose in the near future." As they entered the Global Diplomatic Center, where representatives from hundreds of worlds waited to continue the work of building the new alliance, Miller felt a profound sense of both accomplishment and anticipation. Humanity had overcome the Senate's attempt to isolate and contain them. In doing so, they had transformed the galaxy. But the greatest challenges, and perhaps the reason for humanity's unique place in the cosmic order, might still lie ahead. The stars of Andromeda glimmered with new activity, a mystery waiting to be unraveled by a galaxy newly united under humanity's guidance. The Senate had ruled against Earth. Their vote had indeed been their last mistake, and that mistake might have inadvertently prepared the Milky Way for its greatest test yet.